Hello and welcome to the masterclass of What to Know when Starting a Collection. I'm Brett Scott and I'm an independent art consultant and collection manager. I wanted to structure the masterclass in a way that gives you an overview of some important topics to consider when starting a collection. The intention of the masterclass is not to give you a guide of who and what to buy. Rather, I want to provide participants with the knowledge and insight to make informed decisions when they're purchasing contemporary art. Unfortunately, there isn't enough time to go into every topic in detail, but consider these topics as springboards into future research and conversation. The masterclass will follow the following structure. Firstly, I want to talk about the typical structure of the art market and the artist's journey through that. The next is etiquette of collecting and unwritten rules of collecting. Then I briefly want to touch on different mediums within that you can collect. And secondly, looking after a collection. So that will include art handling and installation and display, storage, insurance, and databases that you can manage your collections with. Okay, starting off on the structure of the art market. I think it's important to understand the artist's journey and the different role players that they interact with in a typical art market, as this will help collectors understand the different mechanisms that you will interact with. These role players are also resources that you can access and discuss with. And I want to touch on each element in the ecosystem and how they interact and support each other to build cultural value within the art market. Finally, I think it's also important to mention that this art market is the structure of this art market is very Western-centric. The art market in different geographical locations will look different depending on resources available or the lack of resources available. So this art market might look very similar to what you'll see in New York or London or Paris, but might look very different to what you would see in Brazil, India, or Ghana. The first place to start would be looking at education. For me, art education seems like the appropriate place to start. Art schools provide opportunities for artists to gain exposure to certain mediums, be it photography, painting, or sculpture, and again, gain an understanding in how they will interact with each other. Specifically, it also allows them to choose which one to specialize in, but you also find that some artists leave art school doing various mediums and not focusing on any specific one. Not all artists need to go to art school to make a career as an artist. The use of social media and online platforms has been incredibly helpful in artists skipping out specific or traditional ways of art education and moving into a career as an artist. In South Africa, the South African context, there are two main avenues of art education: universities and then independent platforms and colleges. South Africa has many strong universities, and as an aspiring collector, they are great places to keep an eye on and interact with. Certain universities have stronger reputations for certain mediums, such as sculpture or tapestry work, while others might be stronger in photography or video work. So it's important to do your research on where artists have come from and what universities they've gone to, and also maybe how this might influence the way that they create their art. In South Africa, the large universities to look at are the Wits Art School, the Michaelis Art School at UCT, Forte, Durban University of Technology, and the Stellenbosch University. Outside of traditional universities, there are also smaller colleges and training colleges and studios, which offer opportunities to aspiring artists outside of the traditional university structures. Again, they're great platforms to keep an eye on and interact with. These colleges also had a very important role to play during apartheid, when artists of color were denied entry into universities. Examples of these platforms include the Badge Factory, the Artist Proof Studio, Market Photo Workshop, the Ruth Price School of Art, and the Old Poly Street Center. Within universities and independent colleges, it's very important as aspiring collectors to visit the graduate shows of these universities, be it undergraduate, master's exhibitions, or doctorate exhibitions. They are great resources. Again, you can interact with the artists, you can even buy works and interact with the lecturers. So it's a great place to discover artists and follow their careers up till they start showing works at museums and galleries. Once artists leave universities and colleges, they usually start to show their art in various places where collectors can interact with and buy their works. These include galleries, studio spaces, art fairs, auctions, online through social media and online platforms. I want to start with galleries, as they are the beating heart of the art world. They are the mechanism with collectors can meet artists and collect works. They're also a very important platform for getting artists and artworks into museums. Usually galleries go beyond the sort of usual normal work of putting in exhibitions, promoting works, and selling artworks. They also provide services such as financial planning and book publishing, which helps artists focus on their work and creating new work. There are usually different tiers of galleries, some that are just local, some that have multiple locations, like in Johannesburg or Cape Town, and other galleries that have international and local locations. As a collector, it is important to visit as many galleries as possible. I would always say visit them in person as well. It's a great way to develop your taste as a collector and find out what you like and don't like. Go see work in person and engage with the staff that work at the gallery. It's always a great way to build a relationship with the galleries. And also, don't be afraid to ask questions. Gallerists and people who work in galleries are always very friendly and open to answering your questions. Then art fairs. Art fairs are at the most basic level a trade fair. People in the art business, such as dealers, art advisors, collectors, and curators interact, have conversations, and sell art. As an aspiring collector, the art fairs are a great place to visit. The art fair shows a snapshot of the art ecosystem all under one roof. You have galleries, artists, collectors, museum directors, curators, art publications, and journalists. The biggest art fairs in the world are the Art Basel and Frieze art fairs. Art Basel happens in Basel, Miami Beach, and Hong Kong. And for the first time, we'll have an exhibition fair in Paris. Frieze takes place in London and New York, and will launch a new outpost in Seoul soon. Then there's a dedicated fair to African contemporary art called 154, which takes place in London, New York, and Paris. And finally, South Africa has its very own art fairs, which are worth visiting. Cape Town Art Fair, which happens in Feb, the Joburg Art Fair, which happens in September, and the Turbine Art Fair, which happens in July. These are great places to visit, to interact, and buy works. And according to the Financial Times, some galleries make up to 70% of their annual turnovers at art fairs. So they form a very important backbone to a gallery's program. Next, studios. So studios were generally seen as these independent, solitary, creative spaces which only existed for the artists to create work. But nowadays they are more dynamic spaces which are seen as meeting places for artists, collectors, and curators to discuss works, to buy works, and to discover new things about upcoming shows. Studios vary in size, so they can be single artist studios, which is just a solitary artist potentially painting. They also have grown since the likes of Andy Warhol and Jeff Koons into these large factories, which have lots of assistants all working on different aspects of the work. As a collector, art studios are great places to meet artists and discuss their works. You can see upcoming works that they're working on or old works that have inspired their current practice. It's a great place also to meet and just get to know the artists and what they're doing. Some artists will sell artwork out of their studio, but if they're represented by galleries, it's always important to respect that relationship. If you go to a studio visit and you see an artwork that you would like, it's always important to engage with the gallery first before trying to buy the work. In South Africa, there are some important studio spaces which are worth checking out, such as Greatmore Studios, Side Street Studios, Atlantic House, August House, Bag Factory, 105 Victoria, and Arts on Main. The next opportunity or platform to look at is social media. I think in the last 10 years, social media has obviously been a huge tool for artists to display their work and to promote their work. So I would recommend that everybody follows artists and engages with them and follows what they're creating. It's a great resource to learn and to see what's out there. You can either follow from a distance or you can reach out to them, depends on your preference and the comfort of artists. Again, you can buy artworks from artists on social media, but I would recommend that if they're represented by a gallery, that you go through the gallery first. Next, we have online platforms and marketplaces. These are also something that since COVID have really shot up and become very popular. And the two most popular ones are Artsy, which is an international online platform, which represents artists and galleries from all over the world. And then the other one is Latitude, which has more focuses on Africa and its diaspora. These platforms provide an online destination to explore and buy contemporary art, usually constantly changing and sometimes curated by different individuals. And they bring together a lot of artworks, which aggregates stuff that you can look at. And it's a great place to discover and buy arts. When buying art online, always be sure that the site is reputable. Make sure that you get detailed high-res images of the works. And if you can, please insist on getting a condition report. It can be scary to buy works that you haven't seen in person, so make sure that you've done the necessary research and engage with the gallery or the artist and feel comfortable with the transaction. And then auctions. So auctions are typically sell works from the secondary market, which means they've been owned by someone else, whereas galleries usually sell works from the primary market, which means that they have not been owned before or have come directly from the artist's studio. However, this distinction is slowly changing. Artists such as Damien Hirst and Abuja have started to sell primary market works on auction. And galleries, large galleries like Pace, Gagosian, and Aquavella have teamed up to sell secondary market works through the galleries. The great thing about auctions is that there is a lot of information and price is transparent. With auctions, anybody can view the works and choose to participate. When the hammer comes down, the artwork is sold and the price of the object is public and everybody can see it. I would always recommend you to do as much homework as you can before you bid. Every auction house publishes a catalog with lots and lots of information about the work, and it's always important to do as much research as you can. Always look for the provenance, which is the exhibition history and the ownership history of the work. Where has it been? What else has it done? It can be very helpful in understanding the value of the work and the authenticity of it. Also, auction houses have very talented specialists, which are always willing to talk to you and help, so engage with them if you can. In South Africa, the main auction houses are Strauss & Co., Aspire Art Auctions, Stefan Waltz & Co., and Russell Kaplan Art Auctions. So visit them, see them online, and there's always a lot of interesting works to collect. So once artists have sort of moved through and started exhibiting and selling works to these places that I just mentioned, there are also more public and private art spaces and intermediaries which collect, display, and contextualize art. These spaces usually don't sell art and are seen as promoters and preservers of culture. The first one to mention are museum and not-for-profit spaces. These traditionally collect, preserve, and present works of art and inspire to educate the public. They usually also offer art prizes and residencies, which are important to look at and follow. For example, the Norval have recently launched an art prize, and Zeitmarker in the Waterfront has a residency which houses artists, contemporary artists. Museums are seen as validators of artistic talent, and it's important for an artist's career to have a work in a permanent collection, such as MoMA, Tate, Guggenheim, Zeitz, and the Zico National Gallery. Once an artwork from an artist sort of exists in an institutional collection, and it's sort of validated for the future, and you sort of feel like the artist's career will have a longevity. Galleries also always try to prioritize placing artworks in important collections because, again, it validates the practice of the artist and the gallery. I would say as a collector, it's an amazing resource to visit a museum to see what exhibitions they have on. And it can also be a very important resource to understanding different movements, themes, and artists, and what is sort of critically important at the moment. Again, for an artist, it's incredibly important to have work shown at a museum. So when an artist starts out, sometimes they'll just have works exhibited at museum shows. But the next important step within that is then to have an artwork purchased by a museum and part of their permanent collections. Public museums are usually not allowed to sell works, so therefore it means that the artwork will exist in that important collection for a very long period of time, which again for artists is very important. The next interesting exhibition or platform is a Biennale, which is an international exhibition that happens every 2 years. Biennales are different to art fairs as that they do not sell artworks, although this distinction is starting to change. Artworks sometimes have been sold at Biennales to collectors, and they're also seen as very important validators of value. Therefore, collectors always try to buy works that have been shown on Biennales. A Biennale is usually an independent platform that actively promotes diversity, freedom, and experimentation. So critically, it's a very important place to go. It's usually put on by a curator or a group of curators who are independent and don't belong to necessarily the institution that's putting on the exhibition. As I said, again, it's another layer of validation, and it adds the cultural value of an artist and an artwork. The most prestigious art biennale is the Venice Biennale, which is currently going on in Venice in 2022. In Africa, there's an important one in Dakar, and other important ones are the Sao Paulo Biennale, the Berlin Biennale, and Documenta, which happens every 5 years in Kassel in Germany. Next are private art collections, who often shape contemporary art history. Fellow collectors are a great resource to engage with, and I always recommend you to engage with as many collectors as you can as possible. Collectors are interesting because certain collections have certain themes or focuses. Some collectors will collect deeply and collect across a range of the artist's career from their early work all the way to their current work, while some collectors like to collect a variety of works across different mediums. Some collectors will choose to focus on a specific medium like photography or painting or sculpture or video work, while others like to collect more broadly. And that, at the end of the day, it's up to the individual collector to focus on what kind of work they want to choose and support. And I think that's the most exciting thing about collecting, is that there's such a variety out there and you can choose your own path. Next are curators. Curators are incredibly important. They help contextualize and give meaning to artworks and exhibitions. I would say curators are very important in helping us interpret collections by organizing them, contextualizing artworks within the exhibitions and collections. For me, as a person visiting exhibition or museum, curators are the ones that provide you with information about an artwork and why it's important or why it's chosen for that specific exhibition. Gives you context to understand how to access that artwork, and to appreciate it. Curators can exist in a specific institution like a museum or foundation, but they can also act independently. And again, as a collector, an incredibly good resource to engage with and chat to and use to understand your collection and how you're building it. Curators also have affinity to certain artists and sometimes show those artists over and over again. So sometimes for an artist, it's great to build relationships with curators. Also, not necessarily always just to show their work, but also to get critical response and feedback. So looking outside of sort of specific institutions that collect and support and sell artworks, there's also supporters and facilitators in the art market, which help provide context and support to artists in the industry. The first one that's worth talking about is art media and art critics. These platforms and people usually interpret the meaning of artworks, analyze and review the artworks as well. So for you as a collector, it's a great resource to be able to log on or to read certain publications about artists and artworks. It might help you understand the works better or understand the collections, the exhibitions that they're speaking about. It also gives you a great opportunity to read more about an exhibition before you go visit in person. And therefore, you can form your own opinions and discuss it with friends and family. So always, as much as you can, I would recommend you to engage and read and see what's out there on art media and publications. And also as an artist, it's very important to get media coverage and favorable reviews in certain publications. Traditionally, publications such as Art Forum was seen as very important, and if you had a review as an artist in there, had a very sort of positive effect on your career if it was a favorable review. I think those type of validations are maybe less important these days, but as a collector starting or aspiring collector, they're a very important resource to access. And finally, support agencies. So these are usually non-for-profit government agencies which provide support to the art community. In South Africa, these are very important because there's a lack of public funding from our government. So these agencies will usually provide grants or loans or something like that, or professional guidelines to artists and creatives. In South Africa, we have a few which are great to support and to look at. VANS is one, Business and Arts South Africa, the Goethe Institute, Prel Visha, and the National Arts Council. These agencies can be incredibly important for young artists starting out. They get grants for making ambitious artworks or for different projects. So they provide an incredibly important agency and support for artists and the art market. Then sort of thinking of the structure of the art market and then how does a collector interact with it, I thought it might be important to touch briefly on the etiquette and unwritten rules of collecting. So as a collector, what are some things that people aren't necessarily telling you about, but that can be very helpful as you continue your collecting journey, as you interact with galleries, how you interact with curators, museums, and the mechanisms and ecosystems that I've just mentioned. I think the most important thing, which you probably will hear a lot, but it's always important to buy what excites you. Don't look at art as an investment and think that that's the way to go. Buy the things that you're in love with and that you want to hang on your walls and that you want to come home every day and see. I think that's sort of the most important thing and the best thing about collecting. Second would be go to galleries as much as possible. It's always important as you start out as a collector and you develop your identity and what you want to collect is to visit galleries and see art in person. Seeing works online or through PDFs never do them justice. And it's a great way just to build your taste, to build what you think is important. And it's sort of included in this is to read books, catalogs, and articles as much as you can. As I sort of mentioned earlier with the art critics and media, they're an incredibly important resource that provide context and information for you as a collector. Third, don't be shy to tell the galleries what type of art you're looking for. In some cases, that can be specific mediums such as painting or works in paper, but it also can be, you're looking for works that are red or green or things like that. Size is also important. So if you're looking for a specific work for place in your home, don't be shy to tell the gallery what you're looking for. They always sort of be very helpful and it gives them more context to go on. Secondly, just because you can afford an artwork doesn't necessarily mean that the gallery will sell you the artwork. Galleries aren't always obliged to sell to the highest bidder, which an auction house will usually do. In fact, sometimes they would rather take less money but place the work in a very important collection or museum collection first. As I mentioned earlier, museums are very important validators of artists and galleries. Therefore, for a gallery, it's very important to place those works in important collections and museums first. When buying, you can ask for a discount. Galleries usually give a discount with 5 to 10% for first-time collectors, whereas larger collectors can get 10 to 20% and museums can get 20 plus. However, I would not recommend demanding or expecting a discount. Rather, speak to the gallery, find out more about the artwork, and generally ask for the best price that they can give you. I wouldn't recommend just demanding something. Secondly, if you can't afford the piece, you can actually ask to pay it off in installments. Galleries will usually be very welcome or open to this. Then you can also reserve an artwork. So at an art fair or at an exhibition, if you see a work and you want to decide, or more time to decide on if you want to buy the work, you can say to the gallery, please, can you reserve this? Depending on the demand for the work, sometimes you'll get an hour or two. Otherwise, you can get a week or 2 weeks to make a decision on the work. It's all very dependent on the demand for the work and your relationship with the gallery. But again, if you need some more time to decide, you're more than welcome to ask to reserve the piece. And lastly, if you'd like to sell an artwork, it's always very important to go through the gallery first. Galleries will appreciate the opportunity to either sell the works to clients within other collectors within their roster, but they also really appreciate the opportunity to look after and to control their gallery's market. So as much as possible, when you want to sell a work, please do it through the gallery first. If they're not willing to sell it, then you are more than welcome to offer it to other collectors or on auction.